Greetings, fellow men. Servus Männer. It's Red Pill Germany again, and I want to wish you all a happy International MGTOW Day. So I want to talk a little bit about Valentine's Day and what it means to me and my wife, and how I managed to be with her for 10 years without ever celebrating Valentine's Day, actually. So my wife is Japanese, and the Japanese are also celebrating Valentine's Day. They are actually crazy about that day, but it is a little bit different there. So in Japan, the women are actually giving chocolates and gifts to the men on Valentine's Day, and 1 month later there is a day called White Day, and that is the day when the men give the women white chocolates in return. And their gifts should also be more expensive, of course. There are actually exact numbers on by how much the gift that the man gives to the woman should be more expensive than what he received 1 month earlier from the woman, which makes sense in Japan, of course, because men have a much higher income and more opportunity for work. So, but this is just the culture of my wife. In my own country, Valentine's Day these days is celebrated pretty much like in the USA, because the modern version of Valentine's Day developed in the UK actually, and there it was imported then or exported to America actually, and then after World War II by the occupying soldiers in Western Germany, the tradition of the modern Valentine's Day that is connected to romantic love was then introduced to Germany together with Anglosphere festivals like Halloween, for example. Now you can debate whether or not this was deliberately done to destroy indigenous German culture, or if it is just a side product of the invasion. Just like you will see Santa Claus, Valentine's Day and Halloween parties, even St. Patrick's Day parties in modern Japan now. Maybe this is just an emerging global metropolitan culture where in all the big international cities the basic standard festivals are basically celebrated in some way, shape or form. But I personally have to say that I reject that completely in Germany. So I do not celebrate Halloween, I do not want to see any Santa Clauses here, and I also don't celebrate the modern version of St. Valentine's Day. And I actually gave it away a little bit already. I said St. Valentine's Day. So, of course, this day goes back to a Christian martyr. There are actually, I think, 3 different saints that are called Valentine and that are connected to that day. But one was, for example, a 3rd century AD bishop of the city called Terni in Italy. Now, from the same time, we also know from a bishop of Rome who was called Valentine, and it is not clear whether or not they're actually one and the same person, but it's basically all legend anyway, as far as I'm concerned. So I don't really care that much. Legend tells us that he basically healed a sick person there, and that gave him some reputation, as someone who can do miracles or who is a healer. And then later he was beheaded or executed by the Romans, basically, because that was still the time where Christians were persecuted in the Roman Empire. So that made him a martyr. So, and for that reason, what I connect with the festival of St. Valentine is more that people are persecuted, tortured, and murdered for their beliefs. And this is actually still a very hot topic, because not only in the 2nd or 3rd century people were persecuted for being Christians, but the biggest group that is persecuted for religious reason still until this day are Christians. So for me, this is more about torture and persecution and not so much about romantic love. So whenever my wife would bring up Valentine's Day, I would tell her about persecuted Christians, and that's the end of the story, basically. Oh, and just as an interesting side note, it is actually remarkable how in Christianity you become a martyr when you are persecuted, tortured, and murdered for your beliefs, whereas in Islam you become a martyr if you do the persecuting, torturing, and murdering actually, and you just die in the process, like being a suicide bomber or flying an airplane into a skyscraper, these kind of things. That makes you a martyr in Islam. In Christianity, that would make you a mass murderer. The German word for martyr is actually blood witness, Blutzeuge. And it's not another person's blood that is referred to here, but your own blood. So in Greek antiquity, some philosophers were also put to death for their beliefs, because it was speaking truth to power, and that was really seen as a provocation by the people in power back then. So Socrates, for example, was forced to drink poison because of his teachings. He had to drink hemlock. And in a way, that was also being a martyr, but not for a religion, but for his philosophy, for his convictions, for his belief. Now, in a way, Jesus was also crucified for his beliefs. Socrates and Jesus did not kill people in the name of Islam or philosophy or Christianity. They were killed for their beliefs. They didn't kill other people. So I just think in these days where everything is the same and everything is relative, one has to point out these fundamental differences between ideologies, I guess. So, but I have to say I compromised a little bit. Like, normally when we're living together, I write her a little card, or I would bake some cookies or something. But these are things I do anyway. I mean, it's not like I spend a lot of money or do stuff that I normally wouldn't do. So I think it's really ridiculous to celebrate this holiday, and also this booking all the most expensive restaurants and going out in style when everyone does the same thing on the same day and it's super hectic and crowded. I reject that really, and I'm really glad that I have my German culture and my religion kind of, well, I'm not really a Catholic, I just conveniently pull it out of the head when it serves my purpose, actually. I'm really glad I have these excuses, so to speak, to get an easy way out, and I use this shamelessly. I just say, well, I'm German, we don't celebrate that, this is something that came from the American soldiers, I reject that, and end of story, right? I can kind of put my culture / religion, and it's more cultural than religion really, I can really say that leave me alone with that stuff, because this is American or British and I don't want to have anything to do with that culture, right? So this is one of the more convenient things about intercultural relationships, I guess, that you can always hide behind your culture, so to speak. Like, my wife tells me that Jews is not part of their diet, and I can just say, well, Santa Claus and Halloween and Valentine's Day are not part of my culture. So of course, when she comes here, she sees that, whoa, the rest of Germany is basically celebrating Valentine's Day, but then I can still say, well, traditionally that's not the case, and I'm a traditional guy. So that still works, I guess. So this is how I, for 10 years, have successfully avoided celebrating Valentine's Day. I just basically said I don't want anything to do with that, leave me alone. And I think, if my memory serves me correctly, I said that from the very beginning of our relationship. Yeah, I think I said that from the very beginning. So maybe that's the trick. One should not create a precedence. Like a lot of married guys at work, they had to leave a little bit earlier today because it is Valentine's Day. And I just told them, I tell my wife that Valentine's Day is against my religion, and they really liked that one. They also didn't know actually about the early Christian martyrs. So when they really want to get out of celebrating Valentine's Day next year, they have 1 year time now to come up with a believable story of how they reconnected with their old Catholic faith, and how the modern version of Valentine's Day is really not in accordance with their religious beliefs. So maybe next year they can also just say to their wives, oh, sorry, honey, this stuff is really against my religion. So religion is not always impractical. Sometimes it can be really convenient, I think. So instead of spending a fortune on a restaurant or a greeting card, flowers, or chocolates, maybe better think about tortured, murdered people, or just have a drink and celebrate International MGTOW Day. Either way works, I guess. Have a great evening. Servus, Kameraden.